You're muted.
I'm muted. I'm muted. I'm here.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the album of the year slash song of the year series, in which I, along with my two merry companions, pick my and their favorite. I don't pick for them; they pick their own favorite music of each year. Um, Going by albums and then songs, of course. Joined as always by Vanessa and Chris, and it is a big one. It is a big one. Some would argue the big one. 1971. The year that has had books written about it. Um, but it is also the book that has had years written about it as well. And there are just so many albums that we are not going to mention that you want us to mention, and that's just maybe more so this year than any other. That in terms of like albums that are well loved and that are famous, there's more this year than any other year, I feel like. So naturally, whittling it down to five that we can talk about in depth and 10 that we can mention at all was very tough. Chris, how are you feeling about 1971?
I'm speechless about 1971. Frankly, it is very stacked, and yeah, like you said, there's so many that we're inevitably not going to mention. So if I don't mention your favorite, don't come crying to me in the comments in Discord. I don't want to hear it. I'm not given the tools to succeed. I'm doing with what I can. I'm just kidding. That it was a lot of fun listening through this year. Kind of spoiled for choice, which makes it hard to cut, but nevertheless a really fun exercise, and obviously revisiting a lot of old favorites. So yeah, just a great year. Hmm.
Vanessa?
Yeah, about the same. Like, I know there's a lot of really big ones that I'm not going to mention at all, like not even in honorable mentions, but kind of how it goes. There's too many great albums, and they're probably all about an eight or above for me anyway. So, you know,
It's tough.
we hear
Um,
you. We know they're good.
um, so I'll go first. Chris will follow me up, and then Vanessa will be finishing it off. We like to alternate a little bit. Um, yeah, so I kind of briefly mentioned in the 1970 video about always being that guy that was like, actually, 1970 is a better year than 1971. And it's tough. I feel like 71, the albums I'm not mentioning at all hurt more than in 1970. But right at the very top, I think 70 was just a bit better. I mean, come on, I had three albums that I talk about all the time at the top in 70. So yeah, but I'm very happy with what I came up with. It was a lot of thinking, and this is what I ended up with. So number 10, narrowly beating out The Point by Harry Nilsson, is Tapestry by Carole King. I'm not that crazy. But Tapestry is a great album. Everybody has an opinion on it. Most people have heard it. It's, I was going to say everybody loves it, but then I was like, well, not everybody loves it. Um, obviously there's the songs everybody knows, like So Far Away, It's Too Late, and You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. But the song I've been loving lately is the title track. So check that out if you don't remember it or don't listen to it. It's great. Number 9, Teaser and the Firecat by Cat Stevens, which is an album that I kind of took for granted for a long time. It was actually for this exercise that it got into my top 10. Of all these albums, it's the one I've known the longest. Cat Stevens was one of the first like classic era artists I got into. So yeah, great. The Yes album by Yes is my number 8. In a similar realm, my number 7 is Islands by King Crimson. A bit more jazzy, of course, but still in that prog realm. And number 6 was my number 3 before doing the re-listens for this. I'm sorry, Chris. It is Hunky Dory by David Bowie at number 6. I still love it. I still love it, but it's just so much. But what? Number 5, the album that at the last second I just thought to myself, which album do I like more now? And that is what I had to do. I couldn't, because there's so little separating these. Which would I rather put on now? And Ram by Paul and Linda McCartney was the album I would rather put on than Hunky Dory. It's such a jovial album. Took me a while to get into, but once I did, the floodgates opened. Only gets better with every listen. I know Pete, that's like a cliche. It's like, well, if you've only listened to something once, you can't judge it. But this album is definitely true of. It's got this warm, inviting atmosphere. You get absolute banger in Too Many People. You get this weird, like, freak folk in Long Haired Lady with Linda trying to sing, bless her. And then you get the delicate coziness of something like Heart of the Country. It's just such a warm album. It's really just, it's a lovely listen. And I love the homemade style production whilst also having that Beach Boys influence. It's a cool kind of vibe. So that's number 5. Number 4 is going to be Nilsson Schmilsson by Harry Nilsson, which was my 3rd favorite Harry Nilsson album. Actually did rise a couple spots from where I thought it would be. But, you know, a combination of being like, yeah, it's awesome, you know, just accept it. And also some of the weaker songs that I mentioned in the video have grown on me, especially Let the Good Times Roll. That song's a load of fun. But then, yeah, obviously the tracks that stand out are Gotta Get Up, Driving Along, Moonbeam Song, and Without You, some of his best ever songs. And it gave the channel its name, so had to have it on the list. Great stuff. Number 4 is going to be Who's Next by The Who, a classic album that I've not always loved, but I've grown to really love The Who in the last year or so. It was actually an album that comes later, which made The Who click for me, to use a turn of phrase. And I came back to this one afterwards because I heard it in my teens. I was like, oh no, yeah, I was stupid. This is awesome. From the opening notes of Baba O'Reilly, you can tell this is a completely new version of the band. The production is so much more full and crisp than Tommy. And they would take this momentum and really carry it through the 70s, in my opinion. Full of classic tracks, but I love the deep cuts on this. Love Ain't for Keeping, Song Is Over, Going Mobile, all among my favorites on the album. So that's number 3. And number 2 is going to be Led Zeppelin 4. My first mention to Led Zeppelin, you guys have both talked about them loads so far, but I'm finally jumping on the bandwagon as we enter my favorite era of the band. It's a true classic of the hard rock genre. You know, it's just as much of a cliche to pick this one as it is to pick Who's Next, but I don't really care. So much variety and ground covered. I love every song except Four Sticks, which all these years I just can't get into that song at all, which is probably what keeps it from being number 1. But the rest of the album is just so great, like song for song. Going to California is so delicate, and then you get like something so relentless as When the Levee Breaks. It's so iconic, and it belongs in any respectable rock music collection, in my opinion. And yes, my number 1 is Blue by Joni Mitchell. One of the most achingly personal statements up to this point in music. I really can't think of something that came before this that was this just heart on your sleeve. Just obviously there'd be albums that came after it, you know, something like Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan that came a few years after. But I can't really think. Maybe after the Gold Rush, but even then, this feels even more just so personal. Joni lays it all out, and it helps her songs that her performances throughout are absolutely captivating. For me, it's one of the best singer-songwriter albums ever. It's one of my favorite vocal albums ever. Her vocal performances on this are just so good. And an album I will continue to reach for when I'm in a bit of a more blue mood, shall we say. So that was honestly never a question, number 1. It was more the rest of the list. So yeah, Joni gets the win for me. I'm not sure. She's one of those artists where I love this album. And in terms of full albums, nothing really comes close, if I'm being honest. That might change because I will revisit a lot of them because I do like them. She might get another top 5, but this is like far and ahead my favorite album from her for sure. So Joni Mitchell's Blue is my album of the year for 1971.
Well, very cool. Probably should have seen it coming. Not sure if I did.
Can't remember
Uh,
if I predicted it or not.
yeah, don't know what I said. Doesn't matter. We're live now. We're live, right? Uh, so yeah, we probably have a couple in common and maybe a little overlap in honorable mentions. So I'll jump in. I'm probably, again, yeah, I might miss some and I'm sorry. That's just how it is. But these with honorable mentions, I didn't really rank. Don't put too much stock into what's after the next. But I'll just, for the sake of argument and ordering, I'll just announce it as such. So number 10, I'm going with Ram by Paul and Linda McCartney. Very fun record. Just awesome pop music. Number 9, I'm gonna go Nilsson Schmilsson by Harry Nilsson. Yes, yes, good one. Um, Number 8, I'm gonna go with Who's Next by The Who. Just full of classic jams. Yeah. Number 7, I'm going with Metal by Pink Floyd. Yeah, I know the barking dog, but the rest of it, holy smokes. Um, Number 6, just missing out. This one was tough. This is number 5. They were fighting for a bit today. And I'm gonna have to put Maggot Brain at number 6 by Funkadelic. I know. I'm sorry to my Funkadelic fans. It just misses out, but it's really great, and it's just incredible. So anyway, forget all that. That doesn't matter. This stuff is ordered. This stuff does matter. Number 5 is Tapestry by Carole King. Yeah, yeah, she made it. Um, she is in fact the king of this mood that she sets, and it's kind of different. It's so warm and comforting. You were talking a lot about Blue, and it's Joni kind of has her own kind of distinct sound, and Tapestry really feels like a big hug to me. It's very, very nice, very warm, and even though there's songs about sorrow, there's joyous songs, there's this whole gamut of emotion, and I think she sells it really well. I really love her voice, and yeah, all these tracks have withstood time easily for me. So thank you, Carol. Great record. So that one's really good, but it's not quite as good as number 4, which is Blue by Joni Mitchell. Good year for female singer-songwriters, I guess, 1971. Yeah, so she wrote and produced this whole record, which is just incredible. Um, and the emotion is so raw. You know the big tracks, but My Old Man, Carrie, California, those are just so they're almost like too intense sometimes. I don't think I can always sit down and listen to this because it's that emotive. um and yeah, it kind of transcends just like this folky singer-songwriter vibe. She really just speaks from her soul, and it comes through in a really beautiful way. Incredibly personal, and I don't really know that much about her other work. I listened to the last record with Both Sides Now, and pieces of some other stuff. So I'm excited to explore her more as we go on. I don't know what she has in store, but I'm here for it. Anyway, Joni, she's just ever sincere. So that's my number 4. I'm gonna move this over here so I can look right at the screen. um number 3. Number 3 is Led Zeppelin 4. Yeah, had to be top 3. Everything's been said about it. Most of it's true, not all of it, of course, but every song's a classic, like all of them. Tom, you're wrong. Every song deserves its status, and if you don't like this record, I think you're trying to be cool. You're lying to yourself. It's time to sit down and listen to it again. It just holds up. It's so good. anyway, I don't have a whole lot to add. It's my third favorite record of 1971. Um, yeah. So number two, number two is "What's Going On" by Marvin Gaye. Um, Holy smokes! So this record is so cool. It's really not that long. Um, it's like a nice 35-minute listen, and it's just an absolute breeze. The tracks flow into each other just immaculately. The transitions are just so well done. And before you know it, you're on to the next song. If you're not paying attention, you'll be three songs down the road and not even know. The lyrics are just incredible. It's a tough look into, society of the time, Vietnam era, poverty, struggles, the environment. I mean, just these bold songs that work in perfect cohesion. Um, I I can't believe just how nice this record holds up. Yeah, that's a theme to most of this. I'm amazed at the. That's right. I mean, everyone's showing up for Marvin Gaye. Um, Number one is "Hunky Dory" by David Bowie because it had to be. I don't make the rules here. I'm just part of this panel. All right. I Bowie in top form here. I mean, in top form. Nothing before, maybe nothing after. We'll find out. Will top this for me. It's just track after track. I love all of them. The big hits are obvious, but the magic for me is like "Oh You Pretty Things," Ooks, Queen Bitch, like those really drive this record's sound for me. And I even like the namesake songs at the end. Um, yeah, he has this, like, I call it like solid whimsy. The songs are just so well performed. Some of them are a little goofier, but there's you get some rockin' tunes, you get some poetry. I get these like Velvet Underground and T-Rex vibes all over this thing. And it's like the perfect sound of David Bowie for me. So um it's my favorite of 1971, no question. Hunky Dory. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, knew that one.
I'm
Oh
so
yeah, well,
I'm
I
so
know. You read me like a book. I know, it's fine.
Paul and Linda just it was so close. I literally decided like last night, but
Yeah, that's a fun record. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably number 11 or 12 for me. I'm going to be bringing some different stuff to the table, actually.
Okay, let's
A
hear
little bit
it.
of overlap, but so my number 10 is Imagine by John Lennon. Number 9 is Songs for Beginners by Graham Nash. Number 8 is Runt, the Ballad of Todd Rundgren by Todd Rundgren. Number 7, sorry, is One Year by Colin Blunstone. And number 6 is Sadly Nilsson Schmilsson by who's by. Yeah. So
it's by me. Yeah.
yeah, it's by you. Sorry, I couldn't get you in the top 5. So my number 5 is one neither of you have mentioned yet. It is Master of Reality by Black Sabbath. Absolutely blew me away returning to it for this project, which a lot of the Black Sabbath has. Like, I've become totally Black Sabbath pilled. I mean, I've always been a fan, but just, I don't know, something's like clicked like crazy lately. I think all their albums in this time period are just so easy to listen to. They're just full of killer songs, and so much more variety than you would think, just if you heard the name Black Sabbath. Like, I really like the flow of this album. I can't think of a single weak track. I even love the instrumental Orchid. Like, it brings some beauty to the album, and overall, I just like how it all comes together. I mean, it opens and closes strong, but it takes you on a journey in between, which is what I really like about it. And I've come back to it so many times the last week or so. And like their other albums of this era, it's basically a blueprint for what would come in metal, but it's also a cohesive and enjoyable project on its own. So my number 5. Number 4, appropriately, is Led Zeppelin 4. When I was first getting into Led Zeppelin as a teenager, I had a weird chip on my shoulder about this album. So it's funny how Chris made those comments about, if you don't like it, you're just trying to be cool. Yeah, I was that person. I didn't even buy it. Like, I owned every other Led Zeppelin album except that one for years, but I've come around. I think because it was so beloved and often considered their pinnacle, I had to be contrarian about it. I find that is often a trait when you're younger. And even if I don't agree that it's their best still, I can understand why people do, because it's basically a greatest hits album on its own. Like, you still hear all these songs all the time. You hear them on the radio, you hear them around, and with good reason. They're great songs, and there's lots of variety on this album, like Tom was saying, and it's great. So while my heart prefers other Zeppelin albums to this one, I still think it is a great album beginning to end, and a great showcase of what made them so awesome. So number 3 actually was a quick switch this morning. It was my number 2, but didn't feel right. It's Muswell Hillbillies by the Kinks. It's 20th Century Man is such a great opening track. Like, it just kicks off that album, and I just love it. It's often referred to as their country album, but I think that's a bit of a simplistic way to look at it. I think country was one of their inspirations that they drew from to make the album, but it's just a contributing element. I don't think the album sounds like the Kinks do a country album. It sounds like it's very much a Kinks album in their very own unique style of songwriting and just their approach to things, but with an influence of country and other genres as well. Lots of great songs, and an album I immediately gravitated to when I went through their discography. So, and it's still just as great going back to it. And I love what they do with their inspirations in it. And I prefer it to what might have sounded like them just doing a straight up country album. I don't think that would have worked, but this works. So number 3. Number 2 is another one that hasn't been mentioned yet. Love It to Death by Alice Cooper, which I love this album. I remember when I first got into it, I had an idea of Alice Cooper as a bit of a caricature and kind of a cartoony character, because by the time I was a kid, that's basically what he was. But this album is really what made me see the other side. It's when they were still a band, so he's not quite into that whole mode yet, but there's hints of it. It's a very influential album to many future genres, but aside from that, it's just a great album filled with great and catchy songs, but it also has this intriguing darkness to it. Everyone knows I'm 18, but I'd argue that there's stronger songs here than that one. Songs like Caught in a Dream and Hallowed Be My Name get stuck in my head for days. Even when they move away from the catchy songs to longer, more sprawling songs like Black Juju and Ballad of Dwight Fry, they still manage to be very engaging and very interesting. So love this album. And like, I always loved it, but coming back to it really made me appreciate it so much more. So that's number 2. And number 1 is the one that Tom expected. It is White Light by Gene Clark. An album Tom once called Vanessa Core Essential, which it is probably ground zero. Listening to it feels about as comfortable as putting on a favorite sweater. I don't remember how I originally found this album, but it feels like I've always known it. And I remember being immediately drawn into it from the first listen. I love Gene's voice and his delivery on all these songs. Listening to this album it's just so easy and comforting to me. And he's like this wise old sage imparting wisdom to me. And so I don't know, I just love it. And it just always makes me feel a little bit better when I hear it. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, I love every song. It's great. It's Gene. I love Gene. So
it's funny to people who aren't, like speak to us on Discord and stuff. That is probably just as shocking as Reach Out.
yeah.
But people who know you, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I did listen to Gene and Alice Cooper, and they'd probably both be in my top 25. And yeah, I liked Muswell Hillbillies more returning to it. Still not as much as you, but that's
Yeah. I listened to some of those. I know I didn't I think I broke my Kink streak, at least so far. We'll see if they get any mentions in the songs, but no.
Yeah, they'll never forgive you for that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The time where they you might stick with them or you might diverge at this point.
Wow, very interesting. So let us know down below, whose favorite do you prefer? Do you like a bit of sad acoustic singer-songwriter, some less sad acoustic singer-songwriter, or some piano singer-songwriter? It's up to you. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like. Please show us your lists. We would love to see them. Check us out next week for our favorite songs of 1971. And I guess I'll say it now, we will be taking a week off this series after that. But Chris is going to be joining me for an Anatomy of a Classic episode on Hunky Dory. So that will probably take up the slot that's missing. So you're not missing a video, you're just missing,
Just missing me.
Yeah, you're missing Vanessa.
Won't be there.
But then, yeah, after the week off, we'll be back with 1972, which is going to be just as tough to pick a top 5 list in because there are so many great albums. But we're gonna do it for your entertainment. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you soon.